there is a silence no one talks about. Not the silence of solitude or the quiet of an empty room, but the silence that settles over you the moment you realize you've lived most of your life for someone else. It comes slowly, like dusk bleeding into night, soft and unannounced. You feel it in your chest first, that ache, that strange emptiness, the growing suspicion that somewhere along the way you traded your soul for acceptance. And maybe you didn't notice at first, because it started with small things, smiling when you didn't feel joy, saying yes when your gut screamed no, making yourself smaller, quieter, more digestible. You thought you were being kind, thought you were being good, but what you were really doing was disappearing. Carl Jung once wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who you were taught to be, not the projection of your parents' fears, not the version of yourself that fits into a box labeled worthy, but the you that exists beneath it all, the wild, untamed soul who remembers what truth feels like. But truth is costly, because choosing yourself will always require you to betray the roles you've been playing. It means letting the mask slip. It means risking being seen, not as a character, but as a soul. It means turning toward the shadow, that quiet companion you've spent decades avoiding. Not evil, not bad, just banished. Cast away into the corners of the unconscious because someone, somewhere, once told you it was too much, too angry, too needy, too strange, too broken. But the shadow doesn't die just because you ignore it. It waits. It leaks through the cracks in your smiles. It whispers in the moments you're alone. It becomes the tension in your shoulders, the fatigue in your bones, the resentment you swallow every time you betray your inner voice to keep the peace. And eventually, it becomes projection. You see your own abandoned self in the people who irritate you, their selfishness, their drama, their need. You call them toxic. But what you're really seeing is you, the parts of you you were never allowed to love. And that is where the work begins. Not with affirmations or borrowed wisdom, but with brutal, unfiltered honesty. Who am I when I am no longer trying to be loved? That question can unravel a life, because for many of us, our entire identity is a performance, a persona carefully curated to survive. And it worked, didn't it? You got the praise, the approval. You were called successful, responsible, kind. But inside, something was dying. That's the ego's great illusion, that safety lies in pleasing others, that love must be earned by self-erasure, that wholeness can be found through imitation. But the self, the true self, knows better. It does not clamor for approval. It waits. It watches. It sends signals through sadness, through anxiety, through that gnawing, insatiable sense that something isn't right. You thought it was burnout. You thought it was a midlife crisis. But maybe it's just your soul trying to come home. The inner child remembers, not the events, but the energy. The moment your joy was met with disapproval. The first time your anger was punished. The day you decided that love had conditions, so you adapted. You split yourself, kept the good parts visible, buried the rest. That was never healing. That was survival. But you don't need to survive anymore. You're not a child now, and that means you can do what they never taught you. Turn inward, feel it all, reclaim what was lost. Because wholeness is not perfection. Wholeness is integration. It's knowing you can be angry and still be good. that you can be flawed and still be worthy, that you are allowed to outgrow the version of yourself that made others comfortable. And here's what no one tells you. The more you align with your true self, the more resistance you will face, because the world loves your mask. It benefits from your silence. It praises your self-abandonment, so long as it keeps the peace. So when you choose yourself, expect the pushback. Expect discomfort. Expect to feel like you're doing something wrong, even when you're finally doing something right. But you must walk through that fire, not around it, because that fire is transformation. The ego will scream. It will tell you you're selfish, that you're making a mistake, that people will leave, and some of them will. But those who remain, those who see you, they're the ones worth keeping. Because once you stop performing, you stop attracting those who only love the act. And that is liberation. Not the kind that feels like a victory parade. The quiet kind, like a deep exhale you didn't know you'd been holding. It's the day you look in the mirror and no longer feel like a stranger. You don't need to explain your awakening. You don't need to justify your peace. And you certainly don't need permission to be whole. Because what you're doing is remembering. Remembering the self that existed before the world told you who to be, before shame entered your bloodstream, before you learned to flinch at your own needs. Jung called it individuation. This sacred unfolding toward the center of the psyche, where shadow and light, child and adult, ego and essence all meet, not to conquer each other but to embrace. And it does not happen through comfort. Number. It happens when you choose the path that feels like death. Because a part of you is dying, the part that betrayed your heart to fit in, the part that smiled through the pain, the part that kept the peace at the expense of your own soul. That is the ego death. And though the world might call it collapse, your soul calls it resurrection. But don't expect the world to celebrate your rebirth. People will say you've changed, as if that's a crime. They'll miss the version of you that served their story, the one who said yes without hesitation, the one who accepted crumbs and called it love. They will call your boundaries cold, your silence rude, your sovereignty threatening. But do not go back. Do not shrink to soothe their discomfort. You are not here to be palatable. You are here to be whole. And being whole means carrying contradictions. It means you can be soft and strong, still wounded and still wise. It means you can love people deeply and still walk away when your peace is the price. Because self-love is not a warm bath. It is not a luxury. It is a reckoning. It is choosing to stop abandoning yourself in the name of harmony. It is refusing to trade your authenticity for belonging. And yes, at first, it will feel lonely. Like standing in the middle of a burning bridge with no clear path forward. Because the life built from your false self must fall apart before the true one can rise. This is not failure. This is sacred destruction. The tower must crumble. The masks must fall. The roles must dissolve, so that the self, your deepest truth, can take its first breath. And when it does, you will begin to notice things. The conversations that once drained you will suddenly become unbearable. The roles you used to play, the caretaker, the hero, the martyr, will feel like costumes you can no longer wear. You will crave silence, not out of avoidance, but because your inner voice has grown loud enough to hear. You will walk away from chaos, not because you don't care, but because you finally do, about yourself. This is the slow unraveling, the sacred unbecoming, the shedding of 1,000 shoulds, and in the rubble you will find the most unexpected thing of all: peace. Not the performative kind, not the peace that comes from controlling others or avoiding conflict, but the peace that comes from standing in your own skin and no longer apologizing for being there. The peace that arrives when you no longer need to prove anything to anyone, not even yourself. And from that place, you begin to see clearly. You see how often you were chasing love in places that could only ever offer survival. You see how you mistook obligation for loyalty, silence for maturity, self-sacrifice for strength. You see how your very presence was currency in systems that never had your best interest at heart. And you stop. You stop leaking your energy into black holes. Stop giving your power to people who feed on your doubt. Stop confusing guilt with love. You reclaim your time, your space, your voice, and most importantly, your right to exist on your own terms. There comes a moment when your soul no longer lets you pretend. You sit in a room full of people, smiling, nodding, but something in you is slipping away, not loudly, not dramatically, but in the soft ache beneath your rib cage, a quiet tug, reminding you. You don't belong to this version of your life anymore. This is not a crisis. This is a beginning. You're waking up, not to the world outside, but to the truth inside. And the truth is this: for most of your life, you've been split. There was the you they could love, polished, palatable, performing. And then there was the you kept hidden, tender, tangled, trembling, the one who asked too many questions, the one who cried at the wrong time, the one who didn't know how to be normal. That hidden self never left. It waited, behind every smile, beneath every compromise. It waited for you to remember it. Carl Jung taught that we all live with a mask, the persona, and we wear it so long we forget it isn't our skin. We become the role. We believe we are the smile, the helper, the achiever, the strong one, the good one. But something eventually cracks, and through that fracture, the soul speaks. It does not shout. It doesn't need to. Its language is discomfort, restlessness, a sudden intolerance for conversations that feel empty, a deep sadness after days filled with pleasing others. This is the beginning of choosing yourself. But to do so, you must face the things you spent your life avoiding. You must look at what you've projected onto others, the flaws you judged, the chaos you ran from, the wounds you blamed on everyone but yourself. Projection is the soul's way of showing you where you've yet to heal. You see your abandonment in the people who ghost you, your unworthiness in the way others ignore your needs, your inner tyrant in those who try to control you. It's all you, not in a way that blames, but in a way that sets you free. Because when you see the reflection clearly, you can stop fighting the mirror and start tending to the wound. And as the false self fades, you begin to meet the one underneath. The self, as Jung called it. Not the ego, not the mask, but the whole, holy center of your being. The place where nothing is denied, nothing is hidden, and everything belongs. It's not glamorous, it's not dramatic, it's soft, still, quiet. It's you, finally breathing without apology. And yes, it will hurt. Because with every layer you shed, you lose a version of yourself you once needed. You grieve the identities that protected you. You mourn the years you spent pretending. But in that grief, a strange peace arises. A stillness you've never known. You stop needing noise to feel alive. You stop chasing people to feel worthy. You stop performing and start simply being. And the people who truly see you, they don't flinch when you're honest. They don't need the act. They come closer, not out of need, but resonance. This is what happens when you finally choose yourself. You stop splitting. You stop leaking your energy trying to be understood. You stop measuring your worth in how easy you are to love. You become whole, not perfect, not polished, just real. And in a world addicted to illusion, your truth becomes medicine. Choosing yourself is not a single moment. It is not a declaration you make once and forget. It is a vow whispered again and again in the quiet of your own becoming. Each time you say no to what drains you, you choose yourself. Each time you honor your fatigue instead of pushing through, you choose yourself. Each time you speak your truth, even with shaking hands, you choose yourself, and the world shifts. Not because you demand it, not because you force it, but because energy speaks louder than words. You begin to attract what mirrors your wholeness, not the wounded half-loves that needed your silence, but the steady ones, the ones who meet you, not from need, but from truth. And yes, some things will fall away. Friendships that once defined you, dreams that were built from fear, roles you no longer have the will to play. Let them go. Because what is meant for your soul will never require you to abandon it. There will be nights where you ache for the past. There will be mornings where you question it all. But those moments are part of the unfolding. They are the labor pains of rebirth. You are not lost. You are shedding. And in that shedding, you remember, you were never too much. Your needs were never a burden. Your feelings were never a flaw. You were simply trying to survive in a world that told you you had to shrink to be loved. But now, you've come home, to your own breath, to your own pace, to the sanctuary within. Jung knew that individuation, the journey of becoming yourself, was not about becoming better, but becoming whole. It is not about fixing your flaws. It is about reclaiming the parts of you were taught to exile, the rage, the grief, the wild joy, the longing, the stillness. All of it belongs. All of it is you. And now, you no longer seek to be perfect. You seek to be real, to live in integrity with your inner world, regardless of who understands it. Because peace is no longer something you search for. It is something you embody. And as that peace grows roots in your chest, you begin to move differently. You speak slower. You listen deeper. You choose with intention. You no longer ask, will they like me? You ask, does this honor my truth? And that question, simple, sacred, guides you like a lantern through the dark. So if you're standing at the edge, right now, wondering if it's time, wondering if you're allowed, wondering if choosing yourself is too selfish, too strange, too much, let this be your permission. Not from the world, not from a guru, but from the part of you that already knows. You are worthy of your own life. Even if no one claps when you stop performing, even if the ones you love don't understand, even if your voice trembles as you speak, choose yourself, not in arrogance, but in reverence. Because the greatest act of love is not what you give away, but what you allow yourself to keep. And when you finally choose yourself, truly, fully, unapologetically, you don't just change your life. You change the world. Quietly, subtly, but unmistakably. Because the moment you stop abandoning yourself, you become a lighthouse. And somewhere, someone still trapped in their own performance will see your light and remember their own. If this message resonated with you, consider subscribing. Your presence here means more than you know. Each like, share, or comment helps this reflection reach someone who may need it most. Let's keep walking this path together.